Hello everyone, my name is Vaishnavi and today we'll be looking at the GATE 2023 exam question paper with regards to the subject Environmental Planning and Design and Sustainability. This year there was a total of 7 marks from this topic and 5 questions. Out of these 7 marks, 6 marks were from the common part. That is 4 questions and 1 mark was from the architecture part. That was just one question. So let's look at the first question that is related to this topic. It says select the publication by Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation related to environmental accounts as per UNSEEA framework. So let's first highlight some key points or key words that will help us solve this question. The first word is MOSPI, Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation related to environmental accounts as per UNSEEA. So firstly, when we say MOSPI, so Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, it's talking about the government of India. So you know it's related to an Indian topic or a document that is released by the government of India. The next thing is environmental accounts. This relates to what UNSEEA stands for. It stands for United Nations System of Environmental Economic Accounting. So this is basically a body from the United Nations that talks about what kind of environmental impacts and other assessment will be taken into account for various financial and accounting purposes, right? So obviously we do not always have this knowledge at our fingertips, right? We don't know what all different bodies come under the United Nations. There are a lot of bodies and sub-bodies and other organizations that the UN will foresee. So let's look at the options first, right? The first one is NV Stats India 2022. This is actually the right option, right? And this is actually a document that is released by the government of India under this category for checking the environmental statistics and accounts for this particular organization. But let's look at the other options, because even if you don't know that this is the right answer, you might know that the other 3 options are not the right answer, and that's by elimination you will be arriving at this correct answer. So what is Energy Conservation Building Code, or ECBC? It is a standard document or a guidebook that is released by the Bureau of Energy Efficiency in India. And the ECBC is only for commercial buildings. It talks about how to have energy efficient building, how to have energy efficient equipment and other tools, and provides standards for all of this. So it's basically a code book, right? That's why it's called building code. What is Eco Niwas Samhita? This again is by Bureau of Energy Efficiency. This is an Indian agency, but this is for residential buildings. So while ECBC was for commercial buildings, Eco Niwas Samhita is only for residential buildings, and it gives you again the same standards and codes for energy efficiency. Whereas Climate Change 2022, Impacts, Adaptation and Vulnerability, is another document released by the IPCC. So what is IPCC? It stands for Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. So obviously this is related to climate change and it's an intergovernmental panel. So this means it is international, right? But we're looking at typically a document that is released by Government of India for specifically India, because MOSPI is a ministry that is only for India, whereas intergovernmental panel is international and it's on climate change, and we're looking at environmental accounts. So obviously this is not the right answer. And Econivas Samhita again is for energy efficiency, that is for residential buildings, and this is also not the right answer. ECBC again is a code for energy efficiency for commercial buildings and has nothing to do with environmental accounts and nothing to do with the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. So this is also not the right answer, which leaves us with NV Stats India 2022, which is the correct option. So this question was for 1 mark and it is an MCQ. So what we can learn from this question is that even if we don't know what the right answer is, if we know some common organizations and common, say, some general knowledge which we have to learn in terms of sustainability and environmental planning, like say, or what is BEE or what is ECBC or what is Econivas Samhita or what is IPCC, by eliminating all the wrong options, we can get to the right answer. So let's move on to the next question. The question is, select the options which is /are not considered primary air pollutants. So here we'll have to be careful with these words which say that it is not an MCQ but an MSQ question, which means there is more than one right. There could be more than one right answer. This question was for 1 mark, and again this is all in the common part. So let's look at the question, and it says primary air pollutants. So what are primary air pollutants? These are pollutants that are directly released from a source. Released from a source. So this source can be anything. It could be your vehicles, it could be some a factory that is producing some sort of pollutants in the air, or anything that is directly being released into the atmosphere. So primarily there are only 5 air pollutants that are considered as primary air pollutants. These are, number 1 is carbon monoxide. Or CO. These are the ones that are these air pollutants are released by automobiles majorly. And the second one is ground level ozone. Ozone is O3. This is not the ozone layer that is there in the Earth's atmosphere, but that which is released at ground level. The third primary pollutant is considered to be particulate matter. These are also classified further based on their sizes, but PM10 and particulate matter 2.5 are considered majorly as primary air pollutants. The next pollutant is considered to be sulfur dioxide. Or SO2. Right, and the fifth primary air pollutant is considered to be nitrogen dioxide. So we know what all NO2 is nitrogen dioxide. So we know that these five are considered to be primary air pollutants, and we can see that suspended particulate matter, which is here, is a primary air pollutant, and as well as, sorry, we have to be very careful here, like I just made a mistake, which are not considered primary air pollutants. So we can see suspended particulate matter is a primary air pollutant. So this is not the right answer. Oxides of nitrogen is also a primary air pollutant. So this also is the wrong answer. Volatile organic compounds. So this is not in the list of these five primary air pollutants, but what is it? Volatile organic compounds are those that are released chemically by reacting to air. You can get these from paints and some adhesives. So these are secondary air pollutants because they react with something else that is in the air and then is released into the atmosphere, right? And peroxyacetyl nitrate is also one such pollutant that is released only after a primary pollutant is there in the air. So nitrates, nitrogen dioxide reacts with some other particulate matter that releases peroxyacetyl nitrate, which means this is also a secondary air pollutant. Which makes D also the right option. So the two right options are C and D for this question. Let's move on to the next question. This is a match the following question that is for 2 marks, and this is an MCQ question. So it talks about missions with their objectives in group 2. So we'll have to match all of these 4, which is P, Q, R, S, with their correct descriptions on the right side in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if we take a look at all these left hand side missions, we know that these are actually a part of NAPCC, which stands for National Action Plan for Climate Change. So what is NAPCC? It is basically a call for action that was released by the government of India to combat climate change. So under NAPCC, there were 8 missions that had to be carried out. So there were various missions like National Mission for Enhanced Energy Efficiency, National Mission on Sustainable Habitat, National Water Mission, National Mission for Strategic Knowledge for Climate Change, and also 4 more like National Solar Mission, and so on. So if we remember what these 8 missions are, we'll know what each of them are about. Even otherwise, we can look at some keywords in the question itself, right? So National Mission for Enhanced Energy Efficiency. If we take a look at the description on this side, we can see the first one says gain better understanding of climate science impacts and challenges by setting up climate research fund. This is not the description that talks about enhanced energy efficiency. So this is not for P. The second one is weather insurance mechanism and afforestation of 6 million hectares of degraded forest land. This talks about afforestation and forest land. So this is also not the right answer for energy efficiency. The third one says decrease energy consumption in large consuming industries. So we're talking about again decreasing energy consumption, which is nothing but energy efficiency. So the correct option for P here is the number 3. If you look at the next mission here, it's National Mission on Sustainable Habitat. So again, when we're talking about sustainable habitat, it's talking about habitats and how to make them develop and grow more sustainably. The previous descriptions again do not match any of the words that we are looking for about sustainable habitat. So let's look at the fourth one. 20% improvement of water use efficiency through pricing. Again, this is talking about water use, so this is not what we want. Enforcement of automotive fuel economy standards using pricing measures. So this talks about automotive fuel economy, which is the prices for fuel for your automobiles, which is your cars and all your traffic, etc. So this talks about sustainable habitats, how to better develop the use of such fuel to make sure that it is sustainable and can carry on and is not harmful to the environment. So this, the correct option for Q is number 5. The next one is National Water Mission. Like, the keyword here is water, and we already have come across a description that talks about water use. So 20% improvement of water use efficiency through pricing. This is the correct option for R, which is number 4. The National Mission on Strategic Knowledge for Climate Change. So if you look at the first option here, better understanding of climate science itself talks about knowledge for climate change. So these keywords will tell us that the correct option for S is number 1. So the right answer will be P3, Q5, R4 and S1. This is the right option. So in A, B, C, D, whatever combination has these letters with their numbers is the right answer. The next question is about the Sustainable Development Goals. This again was a multiple select question, right? Because it says options, that is or are. So this is an MSQ. And this was for 2 marks. I didn't mention, but the previous one again was for 2 marks and an MCQ. This again was for 2 marks and an MSQ, which means there could be more than one right answer. So let's talk about Sustainable Development Goals. So this is also called as SDGs, and it's quite an important term because it was a call for action that the UN gave in the year 2015, and it talks about a call to end poverty and protect the planet. So this definition is given in the United Nations website. You can go check by just googling UN SDGs, and you can get to their homepage where they talk about what SDGs are and what are the 17 sustainable development goals under this. So there are 17 subcategories of SDGs that the UN released, talking about how to combat poverty and protect the planet. So among these 17, you will see that sustainable cities and communities is a part of sustainable development goals, as well as good health and well-being. While globalization and free trade and protection of indigenous culture and architecture do not fall under the 17 SDGs. So it is important to remember what, at least the headings of what the 17 sustainable development goals are. The next question was under the architecture part. All the questions until now have been in the common part. Only this one question from this topic is in the architecture part, and this was for 1 mark and was an MCQ. The question here is, thermal diffusivity of a wall is influenced by the choice of building material. Identify the statements that is/are correct. Again, this is an MSQ, right? So which means there could be more than one correct option. So first, let's talk about what thermal diffusivity is. The numerical representation of the formula for thermal diffusivity alpha is given by K by rho Cp, where K is thermal conductivity, conductivity, and the units for thermal conductivity are watt per meter Kelvin, and rho is of course density, and the units for density are kg per meter cube. And Cp over here stands for specific heat capacity. Heat capacity, and the units for specific heat capacity is joules per kg Kelvin. Now, if we look at all of these terms and try to understand what they mean. Thermal conductivity is given by watts per meter Kelvin. All of these are properties of a particular material. Like they said, is influenced by the choice of building material, right? So thermal conductivity, density, specific heat capacity are all properties of material, and they vary for different materials. So thermal conductivity is the ease or the rate by which heat will flow through a material. So a unit square of material, how fast heat will flow through it. And we can see that diffusivity is directly proportional to thermal conductivity. The density of the material is something we're all aware of or are familiar with. It is kg per meter cube. That is, how heavy would a material be for 1 cubic meter volume of that material. Specific heat capacity talks about how much heat would be required per kg to increase the temperature of that material by 1 Kelvin or 1 degree centigrade, right? So these are all thermal properties of a material. Now we can see that, let's take a look at the options. So from here we can understand thermal diffusivity is the ease with which heat will flow through a material, right? So the faster it flows through a kind of material or a wall material like they have mentioned here, the faster heat will flow through, it means that higher the alpha or the thermal diffusivity is. So let's take a look at the options to see its properties, right? First, I say thermal diffusivity is inversely proportional to thermal conductivity. And we know by this formula that thermal diffusivity is actually directly proportional because both the values are in the numerator. Higher the thermal diffusivity, higher the thermal conductivity. So option A is wrong. Option B says increase in specific heat capacity increases thermal diffusivity. We can see specific heat capacity over here is in the denominator, which means that thermal diffusivity is inversely proportional to specific heat capacity, which means again this is wrong because here they're saying it's a direct relationship. When thermal diffusivity increases, specific heat capacity decreases. The third option says materials with low thermal diffusivity have a high amplitude dampening effect. Now this seems a little confusing, but all we need to understand is what high amplitude dampening means. So dampening of any material means slow. So dampening means slowing down. Right? So from what we can see is that diffusivity, higher the diffusivity, it means that faster the heat travels, right? So a low thermal diffusivity means that heat will travel slower, right? And we know that dampening means slowing down. So a high dampening effect means that it slows down more. So low thermal diffusivity does lead to a high dampening effect. So the option C is correct. The option D talks about thermal diffusivity is inversely proportional to the density of the material. And we know from this formula again that density is in the denominator. So alpha or thermal diffusivity is inversely proportional to density, which means increasing diffusivity is decreasing density. So option D is also the correct answer. So the right options for these questions are C and D. In this question, it becomes very important to know what thermal diffusivity is and this formula for calculating thermal diffusivity. So with just this formula, we can understand all 4 options and understand what they mean. So these were all the questions from the GATE 2023 exam that happened recently under the topic Environmental Planning and Design and Sustainability. I hope you all understood what I was talking about. Thank you and good luck.